Hello, church family, and welcome to another edition of Hymn Time. For the three of you watching these religiously, you may have noticed that I didn't upload a new video last week. As we transition toward incorporating more staff and church members into Sunday morning services, these presentations will be on a bi-weekly basis rather than every week. Hopefully you're enjoying my performances on organ, piano, guitar, ukulele, and voice on Sunday mornings. I also started an administrative credential program through SDSU this week, so that has been eating into a lot of my time as well. The good news is that each week we'll be discussing 2 hymns. The hymns will be tied together thematically. This week, the theme is hymns by famous composers, whose melodies were actually not originally intended to be hymn tunes. Our first hymn is God You Spin the Rolling Planets. This hymn tune was originally written by Franz Joseph Haydn, one of the 3 most important composers from the classical era, the other 2 being our good friends Mozart and Beethoven. Haydn is considered the father of the symphony, as he helped solidify the form and elevate it to the pinnacle of orchestral composing by writing 106 of them. Haydn was born in Austria in 1732, the same year as George Washington, and grew up singing soprano in the St. Stephen's Cathedral Choir in Vienna. Once Haydn's voice changed, he was unceremoniously sacked, and spent the next several years both learning how to compose and making money as a freelance musician. Eventually, he found his way into the employment of the extremely wealthy Esterhazy family. He would spend the rest of his life as the on-again, off-again composer for this family, producing some of his most famous works by their requests. Some of Haydn's most important works include the London Symphonies, a collection of his last 12 symphonies written both preparing for and while visiting London. Oh, and between trips to London, Haydn took a young, promising German composer under his wing, his name, Ludwig van Beethoven. Haydn's 6 late masses are considered masterpieces of the choral repertoire, and are symphonies in all but name. You should listen to all 6, particularly Missa in Angustis, also known as the Lord Nelson Mass. Haydn also wrote an oratorio entitled The Creation, scored for orchestra, choir, and 3 soloists. He modeled it after one of his idols, George Frederick Handel, composer of the famous oratorio Messiah. Part 1 and 2 deal with the first 5 days of creation, while Part 3 depicts Adam and Eve in the garden. If you don't have 2 hours to spend listening to this piece, leave out Part 3. Or just listen to the choruses. They're great, particularly chorus number 5, The Heavens Are Telling. Haydn was a devout Catholic, and when he had writer's block, he was known to turn to his rosary for inspiration. Almost every one of his manuscripts begins with In nomine Domini, in the name of the Lord, and ends with Laus Deo, praise God. Haydn composed the music for our hymn in 1797, after his visits to London and at the tail end of his composing career. It was composed as a birthday anthem in tribute to Franz II, the Habsburg Emperor. Lyricist Lorenz Leopold Haschk entitled the piece Gott erhalt Franz den Kaiser, in English, God Save Franz the Emperor, and it became the Austrian national anthem until 1918. Meanwhile, the song grew in popularity in Germany, with alternate lyrics being written in 1841 by August Heinrich Hoffmann von Fallersleben. This version, Das Lied der Deutschen, or Deutschenlied, became a popular nationalistic song throughout the second half of the 19th century and World War I. In 1922, it was officially made the German national anthem by then-President Friedrich Ebert. During the Nazi era, the first verse was sung at nationalistic rallies and other important events, such as the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. Like the Charlie Chaplin mustache and the name Adolf, the Deutschlandlied was sullied by the atrocities committed by Hitler and the Nazi regime. While the melody was adopted by West Germany as their national anthem in 1952, the issue of which lyrics to sing was a prickly one. It was decided to drop the imperialistic first 2 verses and retain the democratic third verse. Contrary to popular belief, it's not illegal to sing the first verse in Germany, just extremely rude and insensitive. Luckily for us, we have several different sacred lyrics for this wonderful melody that transcend national identities and marvel at the wonder of the physical universe. Our second hymn, We Are God's People, was written by Romantic-era composer Johannes Brahms, appearing as the triumphant melody at the conclusion of his First Symphony. After Beethoven's death in 1827, the world of music had been changed forever. Music historian Robert Greenberg compares Beethoven's presence to that of a gorilla in the room. It could not be ignored, and once it was gone, a large gorilla-shaped hole was missing. The public wanted to know who the next revolutionary composer would be. Who would carry Beethoven's torch of independence and innovation? Was it the mild-mannered Schubert? Was it the brooding Schumann? Most considered Johannes Brahms, born in Hamburg in 1833, to be the heir apparent, although during his lifetime he was both aware of this expectation and reluctant to assume the mantle. Dr. Arthur Coleman describes Brahms' personality as contradictory. He was called gruff, generous, withholding, unpleasant, secretive, shy, mean, serious, boorish, and immature. He could be both fantastically loyal and alienating to his friends, many of whom were the great musical performers and critics of his day. He was a man defiant of convention and full of irony, reserve, and even meanness. While he could be kind and forthcoming with advice and aid, and was extremely generous in providing fully for family, friends, and even other musicians, he allowed few close friendships, lest they impinge on his freedom. He never married and had no children. Brahms wrote 4 symphonies as opposed to Beethoven's 9. After the first performance of his First Symphony, the public confirmed Brahms as the new musical messiah, assuming his place in the holy trinity of composers, Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Brahms took all the emotion, darkness, and adventurous harmonies of Beethoven and turned the dial to 11. All 4 of his symphonies are masterpieces, as is his one and only violin concerto. His choral music is simply the best the 19th century has to offer. Listen to his a cappella motets. They are divine. We'll talk about what a motet is in an upcoming episode of Hymn Time. His crowning achievement is Ein Deutsches Requiem, or a German Requiem. It is a seminal work of Western music. Go listen to it right now. I'll wait. Are you back? Okay. The Requiem does not use the text from the Requiem Mass, which makes it a concert work. Rather, Brahms compiled scriptural passages from the German Bible, cherry-picking to reflect his humanist philosophy. While Brahms was an agnostic, his sacred music reflects his views on the nature of man, and he believed the Bible to be an endless source of inspiration. Based on the words for our hymn, written by Brian Jeffrey Leach and published in 1976, I think Brahms would approve of the humanistic call at the end of each verse, to walk heart in heart and hand in hand, to share each joy and care, living with zeal, to give warmth and to inspire. I hope you enjoyed our examination of 2 hymns based on the melodies of 2 very different composers who lived 100 years apart from each other. Hymn Time will be back again in 2 weeks, but in the meantime, be sure to keep sharing with your friends and family. Also, keep sending in your comments and suggestions to music@firstpress-elcajon.org. I'd love to hear from you, even if it's just to say hi. In the description section below the video, I've listed some essential works by Haydn and Brahms for your listening pleasure. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. You're still here? It's over. Go listen to Brahms. Go!